This regular meeting of the Wetzel County Board of Education is called to order. We'll begin with an opening pledge of allegiance led by Mr. Castilla, followed by an invocation by Mrs. Bonner. Anyone not wishing to participate may stay seated.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, on this beautiful day, we thank you for all your grace and all the things that you have given to us. We ask you to help give us all strength as we struggle through this COVID time. Be there for those that are failing. Be there for the families that are trying to support them. We are thankful for all that you have done for us. Amen.
First item on our agenda is delegations, but I do not believe we have any delegations this evening, so we will move on to item 3 on your agendas, to the presentations to the public libraries this evening. And so if, I know I saw Payton City come in and do, and I've got one other, right? And I apologize, you're from?
I'm from 100.
Okay. And so I'll, and did I miss anybody else from the libraries? Okay, so our libraries serve an important role within our communities, and it's an important aspect of each and every one of these communities. And Wetzel County Schools is happy to be able to support what you all are doing in each of those locations. And so Danielle's with us from Payton City, so if you'd come and receive your check this evening from us. Thank you. And library from 100, if you could quack there.
I'm Tina.
You're Tina. Thank you, Tina. You can grab a quick picture. No, stand beside your phone. Stay right there. You're good.
Wait.
Everybody, they're trying to dive out.
All right, you guys
tried that. My picture was in the paper.
1, 2, 3.
I don't really feel it.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yes,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you
We're
very
glad to be
much.
able to help.
Have a good night.
And we will also be sending a check to Pine Grove and to New Martinsville. Simmons will take care of that for us. So thank you all. Next on our agenda are a couple of reports. We're going to do these in the order they're listed. Mrs. Wells, is it okay?
Yes.
So we'll have a GSA and SAT report from Mr. Houston, please.
Good evening, board members. You should have had in your packets single paper that looked like this. Go ahead and tell you about our scores from our GSA General Summative Assessment we took in the spring, and also the SAT, the SAT. First of all, third grade in Wetzel County, math was 32%, in English Language Arts 25%, and science they don't take that. We were ranked 38th out of 55 counties in math in third grade, and 47. Fourth grade, we had a 36% in math, 32 in ELA. We didn't take the science in fourth grade. That equates to, in fourth grade, 15th in the state in math and 35th overall in the state. In fifth grade, we had a 19% overall in math and 33% in English Language Arts. And in fifth grade, they do take the science, had 16% mastery. That equates to, in fifth grade, in math, 44th, English Language Arts, 39th, and then in science, 52nd out of 55. Sixth grade, that was one of our that's a grade that really struggles across the county. Sixth grade, we had 9% of our kids that were mastery. That worked out to 51st in the state, 26% in ELA, That's 53rd overall. In 7th grade, was a bright spot for us, but we only had 34%. That worked out to be to eighth out of 55. That was our strongest. And ELA was 36%. That was 33rd. In 8th grade, 25% of our students were mastery or above. That was 22nd in the state. And in ELA, 37%. That worked out to be 37th in the state. And in science, 24% were mastery or above. That was 30th out of 55. Then we get to the SAT for our high school students. 20% of our students were mastery or above. That equates to 30th in the state. In English language arts, 43% of our students were mastery or above, 34th in the state, and 22% in science. That was 33rd in the state. At the bottom, if you wanted to go overall rankings, in math we were 26% or 28th overall in the state. In ELA, we had 34% of our students that were mastery or above. That worked out to be 44th, and then 21% in science, and that was 43rd overall. So, in all honesty, our math scores are held their own and were respectable compared to where we've been for several years. Of course, 26% is not anywhere where we want to be. But we did have a big drop in ELA. Why? We've been focusing our tails off on math for a lot of years. That's one area, but some things you need to be that the state has said about test scores in general. We need to look at those as a temperature check. I mean, look where we've been at in the pandemic all this time. Also, think about it. We were out actually probably physically out of the building almost half the year last year or more. Either A banned or just totally out. I bet you if we looked at our numbers, we probably were out of school the most in the state. Or if not the most, we're probably right there. So it should be kind of just a temperature check to see where we're at. Use this data as a starting point and try to go from there. We've already taken action even before this information came out with our strategic plan. Goal number 2 is instructional leadership. We've been talking in the meetings about what we've been trying to do with our administrative team and our principals and passing this down to the schools about where we want to be with our highly effective standards for schools. 2 of our strategic plan goals go with that. We know that we have to have not just us but our families involved in this to be true partners to get us back on track. So family engagement and wellness and instructional leadership, it's already part of our strategic plan. Our kids more than anything I think need consistency, and we haven't had that. I know when I look at these numbers, we know they're not great. We want to be very transparent where we're at and where we need to go. That's why I shared with you the state rankings. I do have to say that I was real pleased with 7th grade math, 8th in the state. That's pretty good. 4th grade overall, 15th in the state. We don't like that percentage, but let me tell you, it's not good all the way around. I've actually took the time, and if you want it, I can email it to you. I can tell you every grade, top county, bottom county, where everybody falls, what the numbers are. We're just going to take this data right now and try to help our kids improve. standard for, a whole group, but also to take it and use it individually. The state will tell you when we're looking at strategic planning and trying to improve this, ultimately this is what goes out to the public, but our numbers are really going to be super important for us to look at guiding us. It's going to be midterm when we get our benchmarks from iReady and when we take the practice GSA and see where we're at and go from there. I mean, it's imperative. As far as math, it's scattered. Some grades are really good in one area, some grades are strong in another area. It's kind of scattered. But the one thing I know is 2/3 of that test is SAT, and the bottom line is algebra. So we really got to make our kids stronger in that. ELA, two things. We're weak on vocabulary. Been weak on vocabulary for years. We just got to continue to try to get better with that. And writing with purpose and elaboration. We have to get more kids out of level 1 and get more into the 2s and into the 3s. It's just going to take a little bit more work and keep working and plugging away. Do any of you have any questions or anything that I can?
I have one question, one comment. This is for the 2021 school year, correct?
This is what we took in the spring.
Okay, because you might want to change that at the time.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's just a little thing.
Yeah.
I just want to say that when teachers look at these scores and feel disheartened, they have to remember how hard they worked last year. That we can't just say, oh, it was because there was COVID.
No.
But at the same time, we just need to look to see how we can keep improving. But
Yeah.
so, and like you said, it's not just the teaching, it's the students, the teachers, the community, everybody. But I just don't want people to feel disheartened.
No, I don't think we should try to feel disheartened. I made comments to my high school people in Summer Academy because I was talking to them about, where we were at, and I said, 20% is unacceptable. But on the other hand, I know you've been busting your tails. We just got to keep working at it.
Thank you.
Gotta be realistic. Consistency will help us if we can try to get consistent.
May I add something?
Yes, you may, Mrs. Well.
It was mentioned to us, and it's true. Last year, we did not have county-wide guidance. The schools were on their own and established the guidance for their teachers when they went remote. And it was mentioned to us, and it did not fall on deaf ears, that we really should take the step and have a county remote learning guidance document. And so our elementary and our high school directors right now, Mr. Houston and Mrs. Stanford, they're going to be working with the principals within the next 2 weeks, right? Because September 22nd is yours and September 15th is
Yes.
Teresa's, to meet with them to get countywide guidance out, because that is tough. When you have one set of teachers doing one thing, one set of teachers doing another, within their own schools, there may be some inconsistency. And when he mentioned consistency, that is what we are doing as a county to ensure that countywide we have the same expectations. So
Now, I think the other word is efficacy.
efficacy is a big word. Yes.
We're going to do things the right way. All of us are going to try to do them the right way, the same way.
Doing the right things right.
Doing the right things right.
Yes.
Anything else?
Well, number 4 says focus on individual students. We have small numbers. Just a handful of students can bring your scores down. And so I think that's very important. You must focus on individual students. If we had thousands of students in the school system, it would be a different story. But when you have a small school system, just a handful of students having low scores can really impact your overall rankings and so forth.
Yeah.
It's very good to see that on there.
Any other? Thank you, Mr.
All right.
My just quick thought would just simply be, let's ignore where we are relative in the state and just focus on growth. I think that we can become enamored with, if everybody was at 100% and we were at 99, I don't think we'd be complaining that we were second or last.
Yeah.
Because everybody was 100 and we were 99. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
So I don't misunderstand me. I'm not faulting you for putting that on here. I'm just I think that we can become enamored with that kind of thing, and I think we just need to be focused on growth. and let the chips fall wherever they may. We get all focused on those, where do we fit relative to all these other counties. Sometimes we can lose really what we're trying to accomplish, and that's just simply academic growth across the board. So thank you. Next is Dr. Inch with the TIS update.
Alrighty, guys. So I'm going to start off with a graphic. And for the folks at home that maybe can't see, it's actually a man standing on a pile of ladders trying to look over a wall. And it says it doesn't matter how many resources you have, if you don't know how to use them, they will never be enough. And in Wetzel County, we are very, very, very blessed. We have a ton of technology resources. Our teachers, though, as you know, because of last year and just every day, they are stressed to the max. And they really don't have a lot of time to sit and play around with what do we have for this, what do we have for this. So over the summer, I intended to sit down at my house and actually watch a movie, which I don't do. Well, that turned into a 2-hour tutorial on something called a pivot table that you can do in Excel, all right? And what I did here tonight is I actually developed it's a pivot table and in Excel, and it looks very, 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 very boring, okay? Over on the left-hand side, it lists all the technology tools that we have in the county at the disposal. Then going from left to right, it says if it's appropriate or not appropriate for that grade level. And as you scan further to the right, it'll also tell you if it's ELA, math, science, social studies, or specials. Now, I could have ran that off and given it to the teachers. They would have had to take in a ruler in their classes and go line by line, but we did something easier. We did something called slicers, all right? And essentially what slicers are, they look like this, and they basically display to the teacher only the information they want to see. And the way this is constructed, it works from left to right and from right to left. So if I'm a teacher in a classroom and I'm looking over here at these, what we have available, and I think, what is a game go good for? I can click on it. That's Ed Puzzle, sorry. Well, we'll do Ed Puzzle. As you can tell, it's not appropriate for pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. It is for third though. And you get a Y there for every grade that's appropriate for it. It also lists the subject areas that it covers here, all right? We'll clear off that filter and we'll do another one, okay? We'll do game goes. There we go. The Y's mean it's appropriate for that subject area. And over here, notice ELA and math have vanished. Science and specials are still up there, okay? So that's how it works from left to right. Now, it does work from right to left as well. So if I say, I teach third grade, so I'm going to put a yes right there. And then I can say, I want something that's really, really, really going to cover math. Over here, the slicers have displayed what we have in the county that teachers can use in their classrooms that'll cover something for third grade and in math, all right? So that's one way to use a pivot table. Another way, our reading coach, literacy coach for the county, Jackie Shepard, she gave me some data to play around with. And this is actually third grade reading scores from New Martinsville School. All the students' names have already been taken off of it, okay? This is the raw data she gave me, alrighty? And I did some conditional formatting so that if a child exceeds the expectations or the standard, it's green. Those in the middle, it meets standard, is yellow, and partial mastery is in red. All right, now the pivot table we can use for that gives you a nice little chart here. You can see which kids drop down. But then if you scroll down and you want to say, okay, you know what, on the West Virginia General Summative Assessment, who are the kids that had partial mastery? You can click on that and it lists the kids right here who had partial mastery, okay? It'll only show you the data that you want to see. Also, this is the first benchmark, this is the second benchmark. Who were my tier 3 kids in the first benchmark? There they are right there, okay? Who were my tier 2 kids on the second benchmark? Right there. So that kid we probably need to look out for, okay? So this is just a good way so they don't have to sit and look at data hours upon hours. Once the data's in a pivot table, literally it's clicking a button and it makes the what we have in the county more accessible to them. It also makes data a little more manageable for them as well, so they don't have to spend hours upon hours looking at it. So that's essentially what I wanted to show you all tonight. Mrs. Standiford asked me to present that tonight just to show that we do have some really cool tools here in the county that we can use to analyze data and also show teachers what resources they have for them. Do
Kind
any
of
of you all have any
one-stop
questions?
shopping. Kind of one-stop shopping.
Absolutely,
if I'm
yeah.
right. Be nice if we could move standards into that maybe?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know
essentially.
you've done standards in another format too, so.
Yes, ma'am, I
So
have.
it probably would be okay to flip them into this, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the beauty part of this is that the hardest part was whenever Mrs. Shepard gave me the data, It was just in a Word document and a chart and just typing it into to the Excel spreadsheet. But a lot of our data already comes in an Excel spreadsheet, so it's just a matter of putting it in, saying do this, do this, do this, and bada bing, bada boom.
That was gonna be my question, was are they gonna have to type in every kid's name and all this stuff to get this, but you just answered that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah. The way I'm approaching this is like my job's not to give anybody more work; it's to make their lives easier. Like we know that all of our instruction should be data driven. Well, we've got the data here. Let's take that one step further, make it easier for all of us. Do any of y'all have any questions?
Yeah, how many teachers have you been able to train on this, the opportunity for them to learn how to use this?
Well, the technology pivot table. We did a workshop. I know the people at 100, Long Drain, Shortline, Valley, Magnolia. They have this. They have the technology table. Ms. Kane and myself, we did some presentations for them. Anybody else that wants it is able to have it. Like I'm not hoarding it or anything. Like this is just something I did because I'm a geek. So thanks.
Yeah, nobody argued.
I know, which is great. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. But yeah, anything to make life easier, and Mrs. Wells, as you said, plugging standards in.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I actually, what started all this is that I did some curriculum mapping, because again, guilty of a geek. And actually, you can click and see how many times the standard was hit as a macro view, and how many times the standard was hit as a micro view. So in the classroom, if a teacher would correlate on a pivot chart the standards they've done, they can look at it and say, oh, this lesson covers X, Y, and Z. Then as a whole, they can look and see where the holes are and the whole curriculum. Also, likewise, if I'm at Shortline and I'm teaching science and I need to cover 3-5-7, I can look at my chart and I can say, ooh, this teacher from Payne City has a really good lesson. Can I borrow it? So it's all about collaboration and sharing ideas amongst professionals. Again, we can all tweak it to fit our needs, but this is, I think, a really good step in getting people to have those conversations and just to show people what's out there. It's like eating a pie. If you eat the whole pie at once, you get sick, take it piece by piece, you're good. You guys have any questions or anything? Alrighty, cool. Alright, so I do have a handout. I can just leave this here and I'll give it to Joe back. Cool. Alright, thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda then is the superintendent's information.
Yes, I already went over with you the remote learning guidance, so I'm not gonna bore you with that again. I do wanna let you know that beginning on September 20th, which is next Monday, we will begin reporting COVID positives, number of students quarantined, and total absences for each school. And that is once again beginning on September 20th. So when you see that information coming out, we've decided to do that. So, and that is all tonight that I have.
That'll be where, that'll be released to whom and,
That will be we will have it on the county website.
Okay.
We will also put it on our social media.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And how often is that gonna be reported, just because those numbers can change?
We're gonna try to do it daily as much as
Okay.
possible. Sometimes certain nurses are so busy that it's hard for them to call us every day, but the goal is daily.
Okay.
So,
Mrs. Slaughter, is that the same thing that you indicated? Some other county had that, is that Ohio County?
a lot of counties are doing it. Mhm.
Okay, that's,
Yes.
Mhm, a lot of counties are
okay.
doing it.
So it'll be highlighted there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Next then on the agenda is superintendent recommendations. The first one is the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting that was held on August 23rd and the special meeting that was held on September 8th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So,
It's been moved to approve the minutes from August 23rd and September 8th. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Are there any questions or comments related to the minutes? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda are personnel matters. I will make one note for you, under the professional personnel, under Alec Ferrari. That date has been changed to September 13th, as far as their start date. So that has been changed. The effective start date is now September 13th, not September 9th. I believe that's the only change or correction needed on the personnel matters. Are there any questions need to be addressed on personnel? Is there a motion?
President, I move that we approve personnel matters as outlined in the agenda.
Is there a second?
A second.
Moved and properly seconded. Again, any comments or questions? Resolved as it relates to personnel matters. Not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. The next item on the agenda are routine matters, section C, and there's some requests to attend Wetzel County schools, facility use, a couple of out-of-state trips, some fundraising organizations that need approved, and an agreement with Wheeling University relating to student teachers. Are there any go ahead, Mr. Caslow.
I just need clarification, as I can remember back. Is this organization in the trip to Europe by Valley High, is that the tour group that got all fouled up a couple years ago, and that we were not gonna use it anymore?
I don't know about this one, as far as who is doing this, but
My understanding is this is the EF Tours. I could be
EF
wrong.
Tours is who we
Yeah.
were dealing with.
So that was the one that was like an issue.
Mrs. Sheball's taken trips with kids before with this group, whether it's EF Tours or not. She's taken a tour with these groups before and has had great success with her group.
Our letter does say EF Tours in it.
Yes, okay, that's what I thought.
I realize that, but there was an issue that a group a year or two ago
Lost money.
lost a bunch. Is that you, Miss Kane?
Yeah, and I think we
There
had
was
said there
a
was
letter
gonna be
came
no
out in
more trip
February
with
of
EF Tours.
20 that said we will not be using student tour groups anymore. That's, and I don't know why it was sent or anything, that's all I know.
Well, no, I'm not casting a negative aspersion on this trip. I just want to get everybody on the same page. If we're, I'm for this. I mean, and if she's used these people before.
She has, and also want to indicate that 100 High School's taken numerous trips with this group. Valley High School's taken trips with this group.
That's the same group I took my group with.
I'm sorry?
That's the same group I took my group with.
Yes,
in
and you had
2019.
success with that group, yes, yes.
But then that was the same group that the whole thing blew up too, right?
Yes, the letter that came out said we would not be using any student group, tour groups. It didn't specifically say EF Tours, it just said we would not be using those.
Was that a?
I don't think that was a policy.
I'm
No,
just
it
trying to
was a
make
memo.
sure that we
It
don't.
was a,
It was a memo.
It wasn't.
It was a
It
memo.
was
It was
a
a
memo.
memo.
It was not.
The what?
It wasn't the tour group, it was the county. Yes.
What county? Our
Us.
county?
Yes, the county said that we're not using tour groups, and that's what the problem was. That was not a.
I just want.
It was not a
I'm just
vote
trying
on
to-
thing.
I'm just trying to get this out, so there wasn't a policy passed to that effect, to your knowledge, right?
No.
No.
That was an.
That was before me.
That was just a unilateral decision, right?
That was a one-person decision as far as I knew.
I just wanna make sure that we.
It was two.
Two.
Yeah,
It was
that
just a
one,
memo.
because I
That
dealt
was-
with that group and I had issues with them, not providing those people their money back. And it wasn't any fault of the students that COVID hit.
No, because it's
And,
COVID related.
We tried to, I think we tried to go the second year then, and then they said, no, we can't do it again. And then, after the third year, it was canked. I don't think they ever got their money back, did they?
They get all their money back minus the cancellation fee.
Yeah, but that cancellation fee was like $150 or a couple $100,
It
wasn't
depends on when they canceled. Some of them were $500, some of them were $350. If they canceled early, it was less. The longer you wait closer to the
Yeah,
tour.
but see, that was through not their fault. That was
Yeah.
what I was, vying for was the fact that it was not the student's fault, that they should get their money returned.
And there was also some, question of ethics, like, 'cause if you're a teacher, you get like free trips if you have so many kids that get signed up. Like you get a stipend, if like, if you have so many kids signed up, you get a stipend. I looked into it, we had a conversation about it, I remember it. Like, I got $750 when I took my kids, but I immediately deposited it back into the account and gave it back to the kids. Though some teachers can't keep it.
So, the question at hand then, I don't believe there's no county policy that prohibits this.
No.
But so the secondary question is there any leftover concern, with this particular tour group after the impact that that trip had, where some students lost some money to no fault of their own?
I just think that was a one-time bad experience,
It
right?
was bad, it was bad.
But I
We
mean,
spent a lot of time with parents.
the history prior to that with,
I don't think there was any issues prior to that.
None.
okay. I just wanna make sure we didn't get into some, like contradiction that somebody had passed a policy.
No,
or somebody.
there was no policy
Okay.
relating to it, that the board had passed. We're not breaching,
Okay.
either way, as it relates to that.
I move that, we approve the superintendent's recommendations as outlined under routine matters.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Are there any other questions relating to these things? I want to slow down for a second.
Yes, on
Catch up.
October 22nd, and just to refresh my memory, the students will not be going on that day.
Where are we?
We altered the calendar,
B.
right, so we could have the EMS
Yes.
levy.
Yes.
No, there'll be no students then.
No, there will be no students those days.
And our employees are gonna be working.
Yes, that was approved.
I'm just
Professional
asking.
development
Yeah,
day.
That was
Okay.
the way that calendar changed.
Professional development.
Correct. Thank you. I realize sometimes when those kinds of routine matters jump all over the map, sometimes as far as subject matters. Are there any other, it has been moved and properly seconded, are there any other questions as it relates to these routine matters? Not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report, and board members have received several things in your packet, as well as, some things to consider as it relates. I know, financial office has been busy, and you gotta close the prior year books and prep for the next year. So, Mr. Lancaster, anything you need to share with us at this point?
Yes, there are 3 items I'm asking for approval tonight. One is the approval for payment of the bills, which you've received in your packet. The second item B is approvals for transfers and increase in the budget, and that's quite extensive. There are supplements to the budget, and that's because a lot of things in our system do not carry forward automatically. We make a budget in the spring, and then we have to carry forward any outstanding purchase orders. That budget needs to be supplemented back into the budget. All these are routine transfers. The one that, in my 20-year history here, that people care about is what's our carryover balance. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second, but that is included in the third packet you have there, the committed funds, the carryover funds, receivables, but the carryover budget is in there. And I'm going to talk about that when I talk about my third item, which is item C, which is your annual financial statements, and I'm asking for approval for that. And I do want to point out just a few things, and it'll be quick. But there's so many things that I could talk about that nobody wants to hear, including me. I don't want to hear it again. But there are some things that I do highlight every year that I think is important for the board to understand, and the public to understand. You know, we have to present our financial statements the same way Microsoft does. So when you're looking at this financial statement, you're looking at generally accepted accounting principles. Those standards apply here, so you're going to see the same sort of thing. It is quite an undertaking, but the first section is all management, it's called Mdna, Management Discussion and Analysis. You can read through that. It's kind of supposed to be kind of a non-accounting way of reading financial statements, but I just highlighted, and I think I put tabs on all of your binders. I've highlighted a few things. On page 5, operating grants and contributions increased by approximately $2.4 million as a result of the COVID funding. So we've received some additional federal funding there, and I just wanted to point that out. That changes a lot of things with your financial statements. Your property taxes increased by approximately $3 million as a result of the increase in assessed values. As you know, it went down a couple years ago, and we rebounded a little bit. But when that happens, the third item here, the board's unrestricted state aid, decreased by approximately $2.6 million. So that's kind of the flip-flop you have. When you get more local tax dollars, you lose state aid, and that works the opposite way as well. But because we have an excess levy, and we're able to do things like we did for the libraries tonight, that's in our excess levy, we get to keep those funds. So once again, always so thankful for the voters in Wetzel County who have passed that excess levy. The next tab is the one that most people seem to care about and should. Page 12. This is our true carryover balance. This is what we have, a surplus, I guess you could say, what we have to rebudget. So for now, and our carryover balance is roughly $7.8 million, but of that, $902,000, almost $1 million of that has already been spoken for. We said when we did our budget for this school year, we didn't have enough revenue to balance everything we wanted to do. So we said, we know we're going to have a carryover balance the way things are going. Let's borrow some of, and here's the time where we borrow that money. So our true carryover balance is roughly $6.9 million. That's additional funding that we have that we get to rebudget, and we will bring that to the board at some point. Tonight, all we're doing is it's in here to go to a contingency line item. And it's the same process we've used for years. We're going to leave that in that contingency item. I've already got a long list. I'm sure that list is going to grow. I'm sure if this goes out that there's a $6.9 million carryover, it's going to grow quickly. It always does. But believe me, there are plenty of things on our plate. We just have to, when we come to the board again, we'll set up a meeting, and hopefully we'll do that this fall, not wait till the spring like we did last year because of COVID and everything. This money's available now. So if we can have this meeting, I can't have it tomorrow because we have to get our priorities together. We have a whole list to go through. We have to get quotes, which is a big, big process. And as Mr. Batten can tell you, it's not always easy to get quotes. You would think we want to spend money, and you'd think people would jump out of their seats to say, hey, Wetzel County, we want to come here. But it's hard to get quotes sometimes. So sometimes it's larger quotes. Sometimes we need architects to give us true estimates of what it's going to take to do such and such a project. So what we will do is the county office will get together, we'll work, come up with a recommended use of those carryover funds. We'll have a special meeting, I'm assuming like we've done in the past, and we'll sit down with the board and finalize those, hopefully sometime this fall, as we'll sit down and then move forward with that. But that's your true carryover balance. The next tab that you will see, the next yellow tab, if you're interested in seeing what our revenues and expenditures are in our county, we're quite a big operation. Our total revenues was $53 million plus, and then some of our expenses, $50 million. Part of that is why we have a surplus, is we didn't spend as much as we brought in. That happens from time to time. We can do that. We can spend a little more than we brought in if we have enough surplus in other places, but let's move on to the next yellow tab. Just one little line, one little sentence here. The total payroll for all employees was slightly over $25 million. So we do a lot of things in this county, but one of the things we do is we're the largest employer in the county of Wetzel. So $25 million worth of payroll for the last fiscal year. And 2 more yellow tabs here. If you're interested in, I mentioned the excess levy, if you're interested in whether or not we met the levy call, that is something I'm required to prove, that we met our levy call. We meet our levy call every year, and this is a demonstration of how we did that. And of course, anything in here, there's a whole thick binder of background in my office when we get audited that we can prove these numbers. Mrs. Wells, I will need you to sign page 54, even tomorrow would be fine, and I'll need you to notarize that for me, and then we can submit that. I'm required to submit this by within 90 days after the close of the fiscal year, which was June 30th. So what you'll see now is this one, an abbreviated form of this will be published in the newspaper as required, and then we'll submit this down to Charleston. And the last thing I want to say, and I debated whether or not to even get into it because most people don't want to hear it, but it's going to be quick, I promise. There's something new this year that's creating a big stir in the state of West Virginia, and it's a new GASB. It's a new standard that we're supposed to apply this year. And the state, I'm just going to read to you what it says. If you want to, for example, if you want to know what the schools, are there blue tabs on yours? I believe there are. The very back page, you can see how much each individual school. It's a very small part of our budget. Most of the funds in our county is handled in my office, in this building, in our bank account. There's a small portion, it's roughly $750,000 that our schools hold in their own bank accounts. You can see that on that last page, how much each school has received, how much each school has spent. The other blue tab on page 17 is really all that has been required that I report on the financial statements. And it's just the total. It doesn't break down the schools. All it says is there's $750,000 received and $750,000 spent. And it's just one little thing. Well, they changed this accounting standard, and right now all the counties in the state are required to follow generally accepted accounting principles. The big change here, without getting into the weeds, because it's hard for me to even mention this without getting into the weeds, the big change is they're now saying that all the school's activity needs to be reported on here, broken down by category, broken down by we break down everything, instruction, maintenance, capital, everything is broken down in here. And they're saying it should be treated as a separate fund in our own. There's so many different headaches with that. It's caused several treasurers to say, I want out. That's the truth. I mean, I've been in a group, I may want out too, but I just can't afford to get out right now. So the point is, I'm just going to read to you what this means for this year. The state has given us the option, since they just gave us this notification just a week ago, 2 weeks ago. The state has given us the option. I'm going to read this one paragraph just so I can say I did it. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board has also issued statement number 84, effective for fiscal years beginning after December 15th, 2019. The objective of this statement is to improve guidance regarding the identification of fiduciary. I'm sorry, people. I really am sorry. What's important is, if implemented, the board would have reported the individual school accounts as a separate special revenue fund for the balance sheet and income statement. As permitted by the West Virginia Department of Education, the board chose not to implement this GASB, which is a departure from generally accepted accounting principles. So each county gets the decision, do we want it? We're going to have to implement it next year unless they change our procedure, which is what a lot of us are pushing for. There's a whole lot of work into this that nobody cares about. Let's just be honest. But I have to do it. The auditors care about it. Maybe bonding agencies care about it, but I'm not sure they do. And we don't have any bonds going on here in this county. Point is, if we would have implemented this year, again, I didn't have time. And I may still decide to do it. I've got time. I can revise my financial statements. If we decide to do it, it means the auditors in the schools more. It means a lot of things that is just ridiculous because we're trying to follow what, billion-dollar operations that Microsoft does, and Enron, and that's really where all this started with the schools. And so my point is, I know it's a lot of language. I'm just letting you know that we are not implementing it. We have our option to do that this year, whether or not to implement it. We are not implementing it. It's going to have not really any ramifications this year. It'll just be a modified, when we do our annual audit, they'll say, we implemented everything except GASB Statement 84. And it's a modified audit opinion. Next year we'll try and get through the weeds on how we're going to get through all this. But other than that, I know that's a lot of language that is no fun to listen to, but I'm sorry. But that's what I'm asking for, is approval for those items A, B, and C.
Thank you. It's laborious, I realize.
Yeah.
That's an understatement. Any questions or comments, board members, as it relates to any of the financial matters we just heard? Is there a motion that relates to the treasurer's report?
I move we approve the treasurer's report.
All second. Has been moved and properly seconded. Again, I'll ask questions one last time. Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, number 8 on your agenda, is first reading of a revised Wilson County policy, which is actually a deletion of JECAA, the advanced placement into kindergarten. I guess my basic question would just simply be, I assume this is antiquated. This is why we'd be removing this particular
I mean,
policy.
did the lawyer recommend it or
Did
the
you have
state?
favorites,
Because
Dan?
we
Well,
didn't have a meeting.
anybody that just like me a little bit.
Mr. Marcus talked to your lawyer.
Okay.
Mr. Stanford asked if we could delete this policy. I spoke with the attorney, and the attorney said that it's not even an option anymore to allow an early entrance.
Okay.
That the code says if you're younger than 5, you go to preschool.
I got you.
Oh, okay.
So it's just an outdated,
Yes.
antiquated kind of thing. Gotcha.
Okay.
Yep. All right. That's what I assumed, but I just want to make sure there's some clarification. So, board members, any other questions? Is there a motion as it relates to first reading of deleting policy JECAA?
So moved.
Has been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Has been moved and properly seconded to delete policy JECAA, the advanced placement into kindergarten, from our policy manual. Not hearing any questions or comments. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries on first reading. Next item on the agenda is a discussion and possible actions on a handful of things. The first in that list is a resolution for enhancing collaborations with military organizations and providing support to military families. Mr. Cook, would you like to speak to this for a minute?
That's what I was talking about last board meeting in regards to the Purple Star program. It is given an opportunity for the buildings to be recognized for doing some work with military families. We will be putting it in, you might already see it because I've got 4 or 5 different schools that have already rogered up and had somebody trained, and they'd sent me their certificates. So they're getting on board with this, and it's on the website. Ben's put a link to where you pop on the link, and it gives you an opportunity to go to all these different areas that we can offer military kids, military families, any type of services, anything that they may need out there, from mental to physical to just several different areas, and it also gives the names of the local military affiliates, somebody from the National Guard, the Marine Corps, Coast Guard, wherever their father or brother or whoever is happens to be, what branch that they're in. We've got those people on standby to reach out, and you can talk to those people individually and find out, what else is going on out there for these guys. How else can we help them? It gives different ideas for schools to use to help meet the needs of our students that have family members that are deployed, whether it's a father, mother, sister, whoever it is. I think it's pretty cool. Actually, it's something that probably everybody should be doing, and keeping an eye on those students. and having somebody in charge, you know, watching out for those kids and giving them a big brother to lean on. And also when the families have needs, we have a link, you know, you can go to these links and then it provides a lot of information for them that they don't normally have unless they are really close to a military establishment, really. My wife worked with a program similar to this when I deployed, and it was like the Family Readiness Program is what it was called. And it was nothing like this, but it was very similar because we learned about just different places to reach out and get help. And there's a lot of people out there that will help, but they got to know you're the key of it. So, and I think it's just a good opportunity. We can recognize the buildings by doing this.
And there's a tab on the county website.
And there'll be one on Magnolia's too.
Okay.
So,
And every school. for
Every
that
school
matter,
will
right?
have one as soon as
Okay.
they roger up that they're gonna do it. And they'll have say the purple star, and click on the purple star, it'll take them to the link that provides all the information for the families and teachers and whatever they're looking for. There's a lot of stuff out there.
Board members, it would be my belief that it would be a good idea for us to consider this resolution that you received in your packet. Are there any questions about that resolution that you received in your packets? I'm gonna read the resolution. I think it's appropriate that we do that if we're gonna vote on it. But the resolution simply stated Wetzel County Board of Education resolution for enhancing collaboration with military organizations and providing supports to military families. Whereas our country owes daily freedoms and safety to members of the armed forces, their family members, and loved ones who share in their service and sacrifice, and whereas we celebrate the exceptional service, strength, and character of military-connected students and families in Wetzel County schools, and whereas we acknowledge that military families face unique challenges due to deployments throughout our state, country, and the world, service in combat zones, reintegration, and frequent relocations based on duty assignments, and whereas the School Board of Wetzel County Schools affirms their commitment to providing resources and programs to support military-connected students academically, socially, and emotionally, and whereas we acknowledge the important role military organizations can embrace in cooperating with school districts to provide for career exploration opportunities and supporting the success of all students. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the School Board of Wetzel County Schools officially supports all military children and families and plans to work with schools across the district to accomplish the following. Provide military families with information about where to find supportive programs and resources on the county school district's website. Provide those involved in school administration and enrollment with information about the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission and its provisions which support successful educational transitions for military families who are relocating to West Virginia. Motivate school administrators to identify military children and provide them with supports which focus on building encouragement and resilience during times when a family member is being deployed. Encourage schools to participate in military-friendly activities which lead to application for a Purple Star Award designation from the West Virginia Department of Education. Provide students a military career exploration day within each high school, where local military representatives may hold voluntary seminars and display information about their career opportunities. Establish a voluntary student exit process, which includes opportunities for military personnel to provide guidance about the benefits of graduating from high school to any students considering dropping out of school. Work with local military partners to identify personnel in the region who may specialize in substance abuse prevention and encourage them to participate in school activities designed to combat drug use. Wetzel County Schools officials will meet annually with military partners to discuss youth leadership programs, resources for college and career readiness, including entrance exam preparation, and protocols for school interactions between students and military personnel throughout the district. Be it further resolved that the School Board of Wetzel County Schools encourages all school staff and community members to initiate, support, and participate in appreciation activities designed to recognize the exceptional role and unique sacrifices our military-connected youth and their families make in our nation's best interest, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread across the official minutes. And with that, read, members, I would move that we approve that resolution.
A second.
Having been moved and properly seconded to approve that resolution, are there any questions or comments as it relates to the resolution? Not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution is approved. Thank you, Mr. Cook, for your leadership on that as well, and that is an important aspect, I think, of something we can be doing to encourage those families, so thank you. Board members, the next item on our agenda is a question about posting and hiring 2 new secretarial positions, submitted by Mrs. Wells.
I ask you this evening to consider, discuss, hopefully, take action on hiring 2 new secretarial positions to help us in the county. The first being at the Wetzel County Technical Education Center, so that we have an actual school secretary there, and Mrs. Jill Fox is not required to do both the school secretarial positions and the positions of her regular job for which she was hired. The second would be a new secretarial position in the finance department due to the massive increase in the money that goes through our county system now that we do have the blessings that we have with our Marcellus Shale.
Board members, any questions as it relates to those postings?
These aren't temporary, these are regular, adding 2 more people into the system.
We can discuss that. I'm open to discussion. Personally, I would rather just have them come in. I would rather have them come in as regular, but we can discuss that. That's what this is about. We discuss it. There is an option for a temporary, itinerant, regular employee hire that we could do if that's what the board so wished.
It's always a difficult situation when it comes to, because we're trying to let you,
I understand.
give you what you need to lead it, but also the obligations we have as a board.
I understand.
And knowing where we are in terms of employees, over the formula already, I have concerns about adding more positions into our system. There's no other way to say that. I just have concerns about adding yet more further positions into an already expanded staffing pool. And that's.
I'd like to just say that, if we're gonna add positions, I'd like to say where can we cut a position? Of course, the easiest way to do that is when you have retirements and people resign. When we added a secretarial position here at the county office 2-3 years ago, is that correct? To deal with public relations?
Yes, sir. Yes, you are correct. It was half-time.
Half-time,
Yes.
is it still half-time?
Yes. Well, she's full-time, but the public relations part is only half-time of that job. She's a full-time employee, but she's Mr. Barkis's secretary as well.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and he had a half-time secretary, so it was half-time added position.
Which when you make a half-time person full-time, you're really, cause you're paying full benefits if they're half-time, rather than really not a lot of savings when you have a half-time.
And I did toy with the idea, Mr. Cook and I both toyed with the idea of making this one position where they would work part-time down at the school, part-time here, in finance. We weren't sure with the trouble that we've had getting positions, first off, if that would be even something that would be lucrative to anyone, or that it would be, at the end of the day, worth it. Being as, especially at the school position, we have a person that if we get much bigger of a student population, truly is going to be doing 2 different jobs. we had a really good situation upstairs, Jeff, with Nora McDiffett helping out with Kathy, and Mrs. Hoffman was very happy with that. And Nora has since had to step down from those responsibilities for a while. And because of that, Kathy has, no help up there.
How many, Mr. Lake, how many people we have on staff?
On staff where?
We're upstairs in the finance office.
I mean, we have myself, we have one payroll coordinator, one accounts payable coordinator, and an accountant. I can't remember what I sent you, but our budget is going from $18 million to like $60 million in the past 10 years.
Would you say those numbers again?
Well, I'm not positive.
I know, I was looking for the email too, and I couldn't find it.
It's something like $18 million to $60 million is our budget now, and it is quite a burden on this. I have great people, don't get me wrong, I
Yes,
have
you do.
wonderful people upstairs.
Oh, I'm not saying.
Yeah, but it's just that we can do what we can do, and we're trying to maintain, get those requisitions out, those purchase orders out, get the bills paid on time, and it's getting harder and harder. Again, with Nora McDiffett, it was helpful when we were busy. We could bring in.
She's no longer available.
Well, I'm not sure she's completely no longer available, but her hours definitely have to be cut down, and I'm hoping she's still willing, but I don't know.
If there would be, if there's someone else that could fill the bill as far as temporary, it's always better than, because once they're permanent, either they're permanent for the next year and the year after that.
I think for me, maybe what would help me, and obviously we can't make this happen in this meeting right now, but if I could see a little more detail about what this posting is gonna say, what the roles and responsibilities of these people are gonna be, and then maybe if we could see that, and there's kind of a secondary question I have that I'd actually have to ask an executive, because we couldn't really dive into personnel names and things of that sort, so we'd have to be cautious as it relates to that, but anyway, I have some questions I could maybe get resolved in my head. I'm just not there yet. I'm just not there yet. And so if I could.
And I have the same type of question, and I can't really ask you in an open meeting.
I understand.
Because of personnel.
I understand.
And they basically relate to how are these things being done now. You know what I mean? So that's why you can't tell me, well, this person's doing this and this
That's right.
person's doing that, because we can't talk
That's
about
right.
that kind of stuff.
Yes.
In open meeting. But if you could,
We can definitely.
right
do that.
now, what I would request is, and board members, everybody's free here to motion, move, do whatever your conscience is telling you to do in this situation. For me, if I could see more descript of exactly what these postings are gonna be and exactly what the roles and responsibilities of these individuals would be, that would help me at least I'm not making any promises, but that would help me at least have the ability to consider it in more. Right now I'm concerned, and I don't know that I could approve this in the moment. That's just.
This doesn't
that's just me.
require a motion to table or anything like that, since it wasn't a.
No, it could just come back on the next agenda
Okay.
there's no need to table it, because it's not necessarily, it just could come
Right,
back as
that's
an
what I'm saying, it's
item.
not
Yeah,
required.
it's a discussion action item, it can just be added to the next agenda.
I have the same reservations that you have.
I do too.
It's a scary thought to add two positions, and especially when the statements are made like, if our numbers grow, and if we maintain the money. Because if we don't, then we're still stuck with permanent positions. However it all plays out, if we decide to entertain this idea, I do think that we need to go the temporary route. And play it out to see our numbers grow, see the money maintained, and then we can switch over to permanent.
Well, and I think that is appropriate too, because we've already talked about the posting itinerant. Is that the right term?
Yes, temporary, itinerant, regular employee.
Right, we've already talked about that in regard to professional personnel, and so we're not keeping them, we're not keeping the guidelines kind of the same, so, I mean, that's just not. So, we'll just, yeah.
Unless board members there, unless there's a motion as it relates to it, then what I would request is, since without, absent an emotion, then if you could maybe just take a few minutes and jot down what these folks would be doing, and then we could look at that prior to the next meeting, and then just put this back on the agenda, and then we can, one way or another, make a decision about it, maybe at that point. Reasonable to everybody?
Well, it would be on the next agenda under the same thing, discussion
Yes,
/ possible
yes,
action,
yes,
right?
correct,
Okay.
correct. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. And then the final item under discussion and possible actions tonight is the local policy for providing paid COVID-19 leave. We had a policy in place last year. That policy went away on June 30th. We were I shouldn't say we, that means I'm speaking on your behalf. I was highly hopeful that this school year would be vastly different than last year, and in some ways it is, so far. In some ways it is, but the problem still exists, unfortunately. So board members, I think we've got enough people affected by this, especially, and the ones that I feel, to be just from my heart here, the ones I feel the most for are the ones who just came to work, and the next thing you know, I'm quarantined. I'm not sick, but I'm using my personal days because somebody else came in, maybe they didn't know they were sick, and now all of a sudden, I'm sitting at home exhausting my personal leave, and I didn't do anything but come to work. And so I'm in favor of some type of paid COVID-19 leave for our employees, whether we just reinstate the old policy until a certain date, or if you want to adjust it, the motions could be entertained, but I'm just laying my initial general thoughts is that I would be in favor of us doing something as it relates to COVID-19.
I've always been in favor of the, allowing for the leave. My hesitation was the addendum for the vaccination requirement. And I jotted down just a couple things that I just wanted to point out, was that there are some health professionals that are recommending if somebody contracted COVID and still has the antibodies in their body, to not receive the vaccine. And so if somebody is in that position where their health professional is telling them that they're recommending not to get it, but then if they do get COVID and then they don't get the COVID pay, I feel like that is wrong. The other one is, if someone, for their own reasons, their own decisions, does not want to be vaccinated, and they wake up, they have a terrible migraine, but they're still gonna go to work. Because if they take that day to go get tested, thinking that it's just a migraine, it's gonna cost them a day. Everyone will be more likely to take that opportunity to go get tested if they know they have those backup days of the COVID leave. And then ultimately, my biggest hesitation in any of this is, we say that we're considering doing this COVID leave, and that we're going to trust the employees to not take advantage of it. But then if we don't allow it for those that are unvaccinated, I feel as if we're saying that we don't trust them. It just, it doesn't feel right to me. And so that is where my hesitation is with that addendum.
Mr. Lancaster, didn't you say, I think it was one of the last meetings, that we spent like $105,000 last year? Is that, it was somewhere around there, I was thinking.
That's correct.
And it may actually be more this year since we've got the spread bigger this year. But we also know that we have some carryover money too. I think our employees deserve to have a COVID leave policy for them to help out. As you said, they may have to use their personal sick days, but what if they don't have any of those left? You know, what if they use those and then they have to quarantine because of other people?
And they're not sick.
So, and like you said, Mr. Price, we could make a new policy or we could just go with what we had last year, correct?
Yes, we could just renew the old policy, and just change the date to, I suppose if we just change the date to June 30th, or whatever, maybe January, any day after today, you can, you know what I mean, you could make it end at any point you wanted, but if we just extended the old policy to a new date, then it would also cover us backdate.
That's all I wanted to make sure.
It would, if we just put a new end date to the old policy, then it would cover anything prior to that as well. So we could back it up, to where it ended in June 30th. I'm exhausted trying to figure out what's right and wrong in this world we're in. I'll just be quite honest with you. I don't think there is any right and wrong anymore. I'm a black and white guy, you know what I mean? I'm a right and wrong guy, I live in that world. And it's hard, it is just hard to, cause it's not, we can weigh stuff on both sides of this thing. But I'd be in favor of just let's, extend the old one, and if we wanna put if we wanna put it to the end of the school year, we can. If we wanna say January 1 of 2022 and see how things are going at that point, we can. However we wanna do that, I'm flexible as it relates to that.
I'd like to say something.
Sure, absolutely.
I may not get my way, but I'm gonna get my say. One thing, Mr. Lancaster, that you failed to mention, last year that we were out of school most of the time. Now we're in session, so it's gonna cost a lot more in substitutes. It could be a very, very pricey.
It could be.
Yes, it could.
And you could have, the other side is, we're already having trouble getting subs to fill our positions. It's gonna hurt that. 10 extra free days.
I did a little bit of research last night on the internet. 75% of the adults in this country have been vaccinated. That's a good thing. 1 in 4, 3 in 4. So 1 out of every 4 is not yet. Children between the ages of 12 and 15, only 33% have been vaccinated. Hopefully that's growing every day. Your odds of contracting COVID, if you've been fully vaccinated, are 1 in 3,333. This was interesting. Right now, as of last night, people who are hospitalized with COVID, only 104 that are in the hospital have been fully vaccinated. Your chances of dying from COVID if you're fully vaccinated are 99.9% against you. That you will not contract COVID if you've been fully vaccinated and pass away. Those who have had other health issues. Let's be honest with you. I'm tired of catering to the unvaccinated. We wouldn't be in this mess if people would be vaccinated. We have got to send a message to our employees and to our parents that if we're ever going to get back to normal, we have to get vaccinated. And that is what is gonna happen if we give this leave. People are not gonna get vaccinated for whatever reasons they have, their personal freedoms. Well, these children are getting COVID from adults who have refused to be vaccinated. That's where it's coming. So, I'm against the policy. That's my say.
Well, the statistics don't lie. You know, I mean, the numbers don't lie as far as that aspect of
That vaccinating is the right thing to do.
I agree with you that vaccinating's the right thing to do, but I still have a place in my heart for everybody that works for us and the students, and I think we need it.
So board members, anyone want to offer amendment?
Could we possibly, if we created or extended the policy, could we possibly not extend it clear up until January? Can we, I mean, this sounds like a crazy idea, but could we put it like for 3 months to see where it's going? You know, if it's gonna break us, not break us, but if
Well, that would be basically
It
January.
would be January 1.
what's that?
That would basically be January.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm old.
What if we're going back to June 30th?
Yes, sir. Wouldn't that be the date, Jeff?
That's when it expired, that's up to the board. I mean, they're not gonna lie, there are problems with that. We ran a payroll on Friday for our first payroll of the year, for 200-day employees, which is the majority of our staff. That payday is a couple days from now, and, there's no paperwork been turned in for those employees, so I'm sure they're gonna have to go back, cause there's gonna be several people that are gonna say, hey, I was sick, and it was really, should fall under that policy, I don't wanna use my sick day, so we'll have to have some kind of procedure where they have to retroactively send that in and get approved by somebody as to whether or not it was approved or not. I mean, there are problems with that, but yeah, that's what you would do if you wanna make it retroactive.
What's the latest count on counties that have approved COVID leave policy?
I haven't, the latest I have is, again, I haven't followed up with it since then, but 32 counties said they're not extending it, and 1 county said they were, and that was Mercer County. I know since then you found out that Ritchie County was.
Ritchie 1 and 2 as well, yes.
So 32-2 is my latest number that I have, and about the ones that replied, but I didn't do anything else since the original survey I sent out.
What was the first day that we had students in the building? August 23rd?
Yes.
Plain devil's advocate, if an employee comes back and says that they were off sick, whatever date in August, early September, and they were requesting COVID leave, is we gotta have a form or something?
We have a
they'll
form
fill
in
out?
place for old, if it's gonna be worded the same way as it was before, that's part of the decision, if you're gonna
They have to
reenact
have
the
any
same
kind of
policy.
medical proof?
Usually like, Easy Care or.
That was
they
part of
usually
that.
come
That
out
was
with-
part of that.
That was
that
part of that
policy
form.
had some elements of how they went about proving that was part of it.
There was verification on there.
As much as we could get.
Yeah.
As much as we could get, because
To the
there's some
extent
things you
that you
can't
could,
get.
right?
Right. And it was signed off by the principal, and then it came to me, and then it came to the superintendent, and then it went to the treasurer.
But, and we can't, correct me if I'm wrong, we can't ascertain if an employee's been vaccinated or not, right? We can't ask them. Is that correct?
I have not been told that I can, so I would not.
But I understand from administrators in other states that they're not permitted, and I don't know about West Virginia, but they're not permitted to ask their employees if they've been vaccinated or not unless they're doing contact tracing.
I think that's correct, Mr.
That
Counselor.
makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I think that's what I heard the
I would
nurse
be
say.
very leery, yes, to ask otherwise.
You're open
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you can't just walk around.
A big
taking
mess.
poll.
No.
So we could make it effective from the first day that students were in
Yes.
the building
Yes.
till the 1st of January or something like that, whatever arbitrarily date, the dates are just arbitrary, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
basically.
roughly, they're not arbitrary to
It's not
Mr. Lincoln's
arbitrary, I
office,
mean-
but they're arbitrary to us, and that's the.
Yeah, they're not arbitrary to the people, but I mean, they're not fixed.
Well, there are definitely two sides of this issue, and one side is there are some folks that are getting caught in a wave of things that they didn't have any control over, and other folks are creating waves that they did have some control over, but how do you pull one out of a certain wave and not be able to do it out of another? So, I just for sake of moving forward, I will move that we reinstate the prior COVID-19 leave policy beginning August 23rd, 2021. It will be reinstated until December 31st, 2021. And if we want to revisit it after December 31st, 2021, we can. Does that create, obviously it creates problems for you, Mr. Lancaster, but if.
Yes, sir, it does.
But is there anything about that we could change that would, besides not doing it at all, that would make that easier on your?
I don't know of an answer that would make it any better. I mean, there are two options on that local policy that we use. One option was any regular employee of the board who is self-quarantined by a healthcare provider for COVID-19 concerns and is unable to work or telework. That's one option. That one's easier. The second one is any regular employee of the board who is experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 and seeking medical diagnosis and is unable to work. So there are plenty of examples of those people in the past couple weeks and in the future months that are going to come up. I'm one of them. Now, I missed a day of work because I wasn't feeling well and I didn't think it was COVID. Might have been. I've been vaccinated, but might have been. But I did not seek a medical diagnosis. So does that disqualify me? According to this, I think it does. So we're going to have several people that are going to say in the past couple weeks, well, I would have if I known I could have used a free day. If I could have got a free day out of it, and I didn't because, well, that's what our policy said before. So it's going to be hard on me, and I'm going to go back, and it's going to be hard on the principals and the two of you as well, because you're going to have to make that determination after the fact. It's not going to be easy, but I don't know of a way to fix it if you decide to go with it.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be taken great advantage. If I have a headache, I'm gonna say it's good. If I have to go to a healthcare provider and be tested, yes, I'm off, then I would say, yes, you're entitled to it. But if you're just gonna stay home and.
That's what the policy says.
Policy says.
Policy does say you have to.
But, what Mr. Landry just said is that.
I'm just reading the language that's in here, and seeking medical diagnosis.
Okay.
So, does it say tested? No, it says seeking medical diagnosis. And
Well, the diagnosis, I think, does say tested. I think the word diagnosis would imply tested. How else would you be diagnosed?
well, I could go to work and they say, the doc says, I think it's sinuses. You don't need to get tested. That happens.
Then if that's the case, it's not COVID leave. It's regular sick leave.
According to this, symptoms and seeking, if we want to change that, I don't know.
I
It's not easy.
I think maybe that we ought to add a get tested line.
I think it should be more, if we pass it, it should be a more restrictive policy.
I
Not-
do remember, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
At one point, we were receiving word that doctors were saying, oh, you have it, we're not going to test. Just do everything as if you are positive with no official test to follow up. Just saying that's another.
Can I ask a question? I've been fully vaccinated, and if I would have gone to the doctor, and if the doctor would have tested me and I tested positive, what am I required to do?
You are then in isolation, not quarantine. We've got, and that's where it gets very, very confusing on what set of rules we need to follow and the rules that keep changing.
And I guess obviously I personally can isolate myself a lot easier than teachers can. But that's my question. Would they get 10 days? Are they back to school with testing? I don't know what that means.
If you test positive, you then have to follow the guidelines for isolation, which are different than the guidelines for quarantine. Whether you're vaccinated or not, if you test positive.
I think we need to have the medical documentation in here somehow. I mean, some people go to Walgreens or wherever it is and get tested themselves, and then they get the results back, and they don't go to the doctor. I mean, they just use that report from whatever name of that lab is that they send you, they email you your results and stuff like that. To me, that would be medical documentation.
The next line on here says, any employee desiring to avail themselves of the COVID-19 paid leave must provide official documentation that the employee is subject to a self-quarantine or seeking a medical diagnosis.
With our recent outbreak, we had some employees that had to quarantine. Did they go, were they tested? Did they seek medical advice, or did they just quarantine?
There is
Yes.
They did go to the doctor?
Some did, some, I'm just saying,
Some
yes,
did,
yes,
some
yeah,
didn't.
both of your questions.
There is
yes.
nothing that says you must.
That's right. Some
Test.
did, some just stayed out the entire time instead of getting tested and coming back.
But they're wanting COVID.
Yes, they are.
What did you say? If you can't have your way, you're going to have your say. I suffer from that as well. What this is going to do is it's going to benefit those who deserve it. I know that, and that's wonderful. And it's going to benefit those other ones that did not get vaccinated, and they are required to quarantine, and they're going to get 10 free days, whereas somebody who was vaccinated is going to have to come back to work the way it is right now. Just so you know, those are the situations you're going to have that we've already had questions about.
Unfortunately, this is like last time we discussed this. There is no perfect world. I mean, somebody's gonna.
And I'm a pro-vax person, but I heard today something that that gave me pause that I never thought about before, is people that are not vaccinated that have to quarantine but never get sick, and they really wanted to work, and they felt that they weren't sick. The person that had it, of course, had to go home and stay home, but they felt that person impacted them to the point where they could not do the job they wanted to do. They did not want to stay home. They wanted to work. They were healthy the whole time. So they feel like that opportunity was taken from them, even though they chose to be non-vaccinated. And that was just something I had never thought of before.
Mr. Price, you made a motion, didn't you? A motion.
Well, I held off on it when I got to the date that I'm backtracking for a moment. anybody else wants to make a motion, go ahead. I'm just,
Are
I'm
you-
just
are-
taking
are you
care.
writing some-
I'm pulling my original motion back for a minute. I'm writing down just thought as to how can we structure this? What can we put into this? You know, we've got this language in the old policy. Maybe we need to reinstate a new policy that has maybe just slightly different interpretations or rules, if you will, as it relates to it.
Is that possible?
And we can just write a new policy.
We could come back to the next meeting with something.
That would be the will of you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we could always come back. My concern
I don't
is
wanna
we
go
don't
through another
waive the
paper.
part of the
I know.
consent
No, I'm
agenda.
just, I
We
can't
got
make that
September
decision because you
15th.
guys are talking about it, I'm not allowed to.
Yeah, no, it's fine. We're all right.
I think we're Pandora's box,
Yeah.
we'll never get it shut.
I hear you. I agree with you in some ways. Okay. I don't know whether this helps, hurts, or not, but, so, maybe this could be the guidelines, qualify. If quarantined due to school-related contact. So, if you got sent home because you came to school, you came to work, somebody came in and exposed you, and you now gotta go home, no fault of your own, so school-related contact. So if quarantined due to school-related contact, if seeking to be tested for COVID-19, if seeking medical diagnosis out of concern over COVID-19, and if seeking medical diagnosis out of concern over COVID-19, the doctor determines a COVID test is unnecessary. So it takes care of that situation you mentioned, where if you go to the doctor to get a diagnosis and the doctor says you got sinus infection, go home, I'm not testing you for COVID. But you thought it was COVID.
But you only have to meet one of those things, correct?
Yes.
Then it
Yes.
should
You
be
don't have to
or
meet them
not
all.
and, then it should be or and not and at the end of it.
Yeah, I'm just saying and as in my list,
Okay.
yes.
I think it's very fair.
So, is that a revised motion?
I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna,
Never gonna make it perfect, I'm sorry.
I know.
You, me, or anybody.
And the second question is, do you, under new guy, you know, last year we did 10 days because quarantine was an automatic 14 days, which would have included 10 days of employment, but that's not the case anymore. Theoretically, be out no more than 5 days. Depending on how you handle the situation.
It's 10 days total, no matter how many events, no matter.
Correct, once you max it out, no matter what the number is, if
You might have
you're
5
gonna
here.
max out no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you, I mean, not that you use them all.
I'm not trying to be argumentative,
No,
I'm just saying the cumulative is 10, right? Or 11, 12.
Total by each employee is 10, right?
Hmm?
10 is the most any employee can.
That was what the old policy had, was a max of 10, that they could access.
No matter if they had one episode or 2 episodes,
Didn't matter,
they got 10.
didn't matter, yeah, it didn't matter.
When COVID took its time cycling through my family, we were out, we were quarantined, isolated, everything, 3 days shy of 1 month. I think 10 days is fair. Because I can speak personally, coming back from 1 month of no income is hard to do.
But also understand that the no income is not really the issue with most employees. It's just using their days.
Right, but I'm thinking if they don't have those days, if they run out of everything and there's no income coming in.
Alright, so I'm gonna try, I mean, here's my motion, and this is the best I can come up with in light of just everything. Again, I apologize, Mr. Lancaster and his office, it's gonna create a headache for you.
It's not the reason not to do it.
No, I get it.
And I'm not, I'll be first to tell you, that's not the reason not to do it.
Yeah, no, I get it. So I'm gonna move that we offer COVID-19, 10 days of COVID-19 leave, beginning August 23rd through December 31st, 2021, under the following conditions. If quarantined due to school-related contact, or if seeking to be tested for COVID-19, or if seeking medical diagnosis out of concern for COVID-19, or, and never thought of this when I was going through that list, if you test positive for COVID-19.
Yeah.
I'm open to anyone that desires to amend any of that.
Did you mention in there 10 days?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Anybody desire to amend any of that?
We can't amend it till somebody seconds.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I was gonna wait. You could have
I
jumped in on me and we
I
could-
understand
yeah,
what you mean.
Yeah.
Anybody wanna
Okay.
alter that or something?
So it's came out of my head as jumbled as it is, so I'll move that we accept, that approach to the COVID-19 leave.
I'll second it.
It has been moved and properly seconded, and I appreciate any other questions or comments related to it. Not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
I appreciate everybody's candor on it. Thank you all. That's.
Did you catch all that, Mrs.
Everyone.
Simmons?
I got it.
Thank you.
Okay, I just checking.
And last two items on our agenda is there a board committee report. I think there is, Amy did share one thing from WU Extension, I believe.
Yes, I got the summer summary of all the activities that the 4-H, the youth development of the WVU Extension Services did over the summer. You guys can read it at your leisure. I just want to point out at the bottom, it says photos and updates can be viewed on Facebook under Wetzel County 4-H or under Instagram at Wetzel County WV 4-H. And pertinent to us, I think it's important to point out that we had over 70 children participating in 6 weeks of Energy Express at Long Drain and Hayden City Elementary. I think 70 kids is quite something with the summer that we've had.
I'd say they were pretty busy considering
Very busy.
the year and the circumstances.
Very busy.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? Not hearing anything. Mrs. Wills, anything related to accountability?
Yes, sir, we do have some people that would like to talk today. We'll just go through my administrators here at the county office, and if they don't have anything, they can just pass it on to the next person. Mr. Cook?
I think I'm gonna pass and wait till the end.
Okay, you gonna wait till the end? Okay. Mr. Lancaster, anything additional?
I think I've said more than my share.
Fine. Mr. McPherson?
Yeah, it's not a Western movement. I'll go bad, better, and best instead of the good, bad, and the ugly. We have managed to stay ahead of all of the supply chain issues for 18 months, and we finally got bit with laptops right now. We are short enough on laptops that we weren't able to issue one to everyone yet. We got very, very close, and then last week we went remote, and we decided that we needed to prioritize laptops for students who weren't in the building as best we could. We still did leave 2 classes at New Martinsville School without laptops that we didn't have enough. We started with 150 extra when we started this little project, and we're still underwater right now. They are coming in every day, and we have a magic number, and we hit that number, we'll be fine. But so after 18 months, we finally got caught by one of the shortages. So, and we're managing it the very best that we possibly can. And I mean, that's where we are. There's nothing, I think if I'd have bought 200 extra, I think we'd still be in the same boat waiting on some stuff to come back. And it's just where we are. We are doing the tech days. We did one at New Martinsville School. We did one at Magnolia High School. My tech repair staff, along with the technology integration folks who have preemptively been preparing for this for longer than they would probably care to talk about. And then also Mrs. Young and Ms. Kane jumped into action when one of their assigned schools went remote. And I know that Dr. Emsch and Mrs. Kimball stand ready. We hope not to, but we'll be ready if we need to jump into action on that. So, and we have another one tomorrow, despite the fact that I typed the 13th. Tomorrow from 9 to 1 will be available at the center for anybody who has a problem from New Martinsville or Magnolia who's out, who has a laptop problem, so we can do replacements and repairs, whatever we need to do. That was the better. The best, we looked at some stats today for our 2 schools who are on remote, and I'm well pleased. New Martinsville School, 65% of the kids who had a computer were online today. Visited Schoology pages 15,000 times. That's a lot of Schoology. In Magnolia High School, 75% of students there were on Schoology at some point in time today. Visited 12,000 different pages. Mrs. Schmaltz and I talked for a brief moment, and if you compare the amount of students that were absent the last day they were in person, they had more kids at school virtually today than they did that day. So if you wonder if we're getting to kids, yes we are. And I know both of those folks are also making efforts to reach those students we know that don't have internet access. So while it's not what we want, I think we're doing a great job with the alternative right now. So that's all I have unless anybody has a question.
Mr. McPherson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. McPherson?
Child nutrition, meal bundles were shipped today. That's for the students at New Martinsville and Magnolia. They had until 10 a.m. on Friday to opt out of that program. So meal bundles were being delivered straight from the company who packages them to their homes. So those should be arriving either today, tomorrow, possibly Wednesday. Expect shortages. We're there, so we thank everyone for working with us, and we'll continue to do our best to keep everyone up to date on changes to the menu as they roll in. And once, just thank you for being patient with us as we make those changes. Our school nurses, we are so very fortunate to have a school nurse in each building. That is wonderful. They are putting in 12+ hour days. They're getting phone calls now directly from Easy Care on positives to try to help start that contact tracing process earlier. And we're also using those new guidelines that came out on the 3rd with that contact tracing. But even with all of these changes, it's still difficult. And it's still a lot of time, and it's still a lot of late evenings and early mornings and frustrations and all of that. So, we're excited to get started with the new mitigation secretary as well. Hopefully that will help take some of that burden off of this already stressed process that we have. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McPherson. Mr. Batten?
Just a couple things, Mrs. Wells, couple projects we got going on. The upgrade to the IP, the camera security systems in each building. They've finished one building. They're working with Ben and his IT group to kind of finalize things there. A lot of the wiring has been done in most of the buildings. They're just going back in and installing cameras. And maintenance under Jamie Doty and his crew have began to work on the greenhouse at Valley High School, so they've started to construct it. Go ahead, Mrs. Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vargas?
I'd like to commend Mr. Beck. He has done a heck of a job thinking outside of the box to have enough, keep the buses running on the highways, lack of substitutes. I just know how it is, and I never had experienced anything like this, but thank you, and for everything that you do.
You're welcome, Mr. Yeager. Thank you. And mainly the reason there is the commitment of these drivers. They've stepped right up. Right now, of course, Riverfront is we're kind of migrating to Margaret schools we know, and the drivers are stepping up and helping in other sections of the county. So that's appreciate your thoughts there, and I'll pass that right on to that transportation department. So thank you, Mr. Yeager.
Mr. Vargas?
I'll pass tonight.
Okay, Mrs. Stanford?
I've got a couple things. We are starting our tutoring after school, but we've sent out time sheets for teachers to start on that like we did last year. Also, Title I will be starting their tutoring probably by the end of this month, and they do it a couple times a week on top of the other teachers that's tutoring. And also, I attended a CSI conference in Clarksburg for the day, and with the principal at Short Line. We mainly went over the 7 standards of effective schools. This is Mrs. Wells has been going over them with us. We spent the entire day basically on that. They gave us a survey that I'm meeting with Short Line School in the morning, and we're going to send it electronically, and we're going to have that taken out there right away. So we're going to do that, and then I think we're going to continue to do the other schools in the county. So.
Thank you. Ms. Novotny?
The only thing I have is, because our students at New Martinsville School and Magnolia are out, some of our students with disabilities are being brought in, being bused in, and provided instruction during the school day, and that's because it's difficult to implement a remote learning plan for some of our students. So I do want to commend our drivers and lunch ladies who are helping out with their meals, and teachers as well. So.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Novotny. And Mr. Houston, do you have anything to add to your?
Well, I think I've spoken up.
Okay. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. Okay.
Back after Mr. Cook.
Nope, that's right.
Couple things, I know you guys don't wanna hear this, but, I do have some special ed needs, that I have to meet. I've got 2.5 aides I'm gonna have to hire. I have one that's still out there, from RIFs from last year, and the year before last, actually, the 1920 school year, that she's still hanging on out there, and, so she would be brought back, and that would be all of our people that we have out there in the RIF mode, so that's a good thing. But given light, we gotta add a special ed bus and an aide to that. We've been running practice runs here for the last, since school started, and we don't seem to find any way around it. So I'm gonna have to do it in order to meet the timeline criteria that special ed has for their kids as well as everybody else. So that is gonna be something that I gotta post in the next few days. Also, mechanics, we asked about getting another mechanic. I've given the test. It's not been a good outcome on the test at this point. I'll try again, but I did get an email from one of the State Department people today saying that service testing is gonna go all online. So, once we get control over our laptop situation, I'm gonna need, you know, you guys to help me get set up for that, and I'll have to get some training, and whenever we have people come in and do service testing, they'll log in and take the test for whatever, mechanic or custodian, and they'll get immediate feedback as to whether they passed or not. I try to give them immediate feedback too, and in some cases I can pretty much tell pretty quickly whether they passed or not. I haven't had that many people to where I can just grade them on their way out the door, send them a text or call them and stuff that day. And people want to know, and so this will be a it'll be quicker, and it's going to be less paperwork for me in the end, I would assume. So it's going to be better. It's going to be faster. It's going to be stronger. We can rebuild them. Where was I going with that? I think that's it. I think I'm going to start putting this stuff into the treasurer's report, because when you start talking about Gatsby and things like that, you guys are going to say, that's okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Board members, any other questions to raise accountability that was heard? Not hearing any questions then, with the next meeting being September 27th at 6 o'clock, I would move for adjournment.
I'll second.
As a move, properly seconded to adjourn, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 7.